Mulweni. Welcome to East London 360 degrees. You with me again on this channel, Mlani. Well, I'm wearing a jacket today. Well, I thought, let me continue with what I was saying last time around. We were talking about a gentleman by the name of Jan van Riebiek. What is a Boer? I'll call him a Boer, but he was from Holland, Netherlands. He was a settler from there. He's the one who devastated this country. He devastated it. Now, when I'm saying devastated, he killed all the financial points of South Africa. Mainly, he took the Cape Town. Now, if you watch Cape Town today, it has got one of the busiest ports in Africa, and in fact, the world. This was established when? It was established in the mid-1600s. It was established even before that, but it was just informal. As I previously stated on my last video that there was a gentleman by the name of Bartholomew Diaz, but when Jan van Riebeek came, he made sure that this is business, because where he comes from, in Indonesia, he was trading, he was making money, he was an ambitious man. Now let's dwell more on this factor that in the mid-1600s, the gentleman had ambitions in terms of business. He established this refreshment station. In fact, it was not a refreshment station. It was a form of business, because if you watch or you hear or you read history on Africans and African trading, the trade you're gonna hear about, number one, is slavery. This is where most people are actually losing it. They will talk about how many Africans were enslaved, blah, 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 blah. So if you go on the west coast of Africa, which is Nigeria, Sierra Leone, back in the day it was known as one of the Dahomey, I think is the famous one, or the Gold Coast, which was Ghana. They were trading in slaves. But when you came to the south, which is South Africa, why there was a refreshment station, not a trading slavery port? This is why, because they were establishing business in this region. This is where they started building. This is where they started moving inside. This is where they started establishing themselves in terms of business, because they took land, number one, in Stellenbosch, in Franschhoek, in the Karoo. They took land in what you know as Lion's Head in Cape Town, all that region of Camps Bay. They started pushing the sea back, with the sea which was in the mountain. They started pushing it back. They took Robben Island, so they made sure that business was possible. So Jan van Riebeek, when he came, he killed business of black people. The prosperity, the prosperity as blacks that we had, in one of the businesses these people had, if you ever known, or if you go to South African breweries with his SAB in observatory, you will know that they established a wine farm before establishing a beer place. The reason for that, because of the mountain had fresh water. Even these days I hear that they say Africa has no fresh water. What nonsense is that? What nonsense is that? Because how can there not be fresh water in Africa? But anyway, it's a discussion for another day. Back to what I was saying. They were strategic, everything was systematic. So when did Jan van Riebeek actually encounter Amaxhosa? Now, Amaxhosa in the 1600s, some of them were still moving. This was before Uyinza, this was before Ucaleka, but in the 1700s, these guys, Amaxhosa, this is where the separation started to happen. They fought themselves. Amaxhosa, one of the strangest people that I've met in my life. You know, the Mumxhosa, but it's like these people are foreign to me. They fight amongst themselves like nobody's business. They are not united. You had clans. You Upalo, Wainonyana, Onyana bakhe balwa bodwa, Onyana bonyana balwa bodwa. Now this time that there were these separations in these people, Amangisi, Dutch, they were landing in the Cape. But they were already planning on how we're gonna take Lendao Kutwa Ikanana, because I believe this for them was the land of honey and milk. The rightful people of this land, which was the Khoi and San, the Xhosas, they were fighting, Babesilwa, and Yanguku Abelungu came in as thieves in the night and did destruction. And let me pause this video. Let me pause it, and I'm gonna just continue. I wanna get a glass of water, because what I'm gonna say is gonna shock you. There was something that's going to shock you. Very important. Listen to this. Upalo, he had a brother now who was in line to take over because he was older. But because Upalo was coming from an older wife, then Palo had to take over. But his father died now, and Palo was young. He was he was in trouble to be overthrown. Now this is the history of the Xhosa people by the time that Europeans were coming. Just want to recall on this perfect timing that this thing was happening. Uchiwo, which was the father of Upalo, I don't want to say he was carrying what was gonna be a change in our lineage as a Xhosa, but I think all the kings before Uchiwo had troubles and stuff, but umnombo kaChiwo changed izinto ezininzi kumaXhosa. Mainly one of them was the birth of Upalo, because with Upalo it was the time where the Europeans arrived in South Africa. So when these guys were trying to overthrow each other, Ngosini was invaded by Ogaba, Onozinga. When Onozinga were trying to invade by Ngosini wangena the palace, Ugaba, sorry, wangena the palace kaNgosini, kwakukomkhulu ke xa ifika uphethwe umsila wendlovu uyobonisa into yobana ndizoqala umlungu. He went there and was like, I'm coming with a fight. And all this time the Europeans ndisatsho amabhulu afikile emnyango selendishile eCape Town, benza icawe, the planning, the strategizing. Thina singamaXhosa siyahlulana, siyaqephulana, we are dividing ourselves as Xhosa people, which was lento kuthiwa ngoku iKai River. We all know uba yintoni iKai River. So iKai River was separated. So you had aba bangapha, abafana abangapha. And what is Jan van Riebeek doing at this time? Jan van Riebeek is building Dutch reform. The British, they started seizing the Cape Colony in the late parts of the 1700s, which was in 1795, the British seized the Cape. Now, in one of the diaries of Jan van Riebeek, he says he encountered people called Xhobona, very tall people and very dark. They had long hair. If you look at my hair, they had hair like this, but it was not curled. So it was lendo amabhulu ati today it's kafalhare. They had that kind of hair. They were tall, they were strong, they had spears, and all these guys they were called Xhobona. So ngobani o Xhobona? Now the Khoi kings, when they encountered amaXhosa, they said these people, when they meet, they say Sawubona, Sawubona, because they couldn't pronounce Sawubona. They said we are called Xhobona. So in one of those diaries, Jan van Riebeek was writing that he encountered these people called Xhobona. who were very intelligent and very smart, but one thing was lacking. It was unity. Babengavani, they were just fighting each other. Now, back to Jan van Riebiek. When Jan van Riebiek now took the Cape, when he took the land, they wanted to build wine farms. So they needed people working on the farms. Now, Amaxhosa, as we all know, they said no. They didn't want to be called into that. They didn't want to do any work for them. Hence, the slaves. If you go to Waterfront, in one of the restaurants there, just by where there's the 4 statues of the people that won these European things, that doesn't make sense. These humanitarian awards, the 4 statues there, one of them is Mandela, Sisulu, and the other guys, Luthuli and de Klerk. So when you pass there, there's a small building which is on the right, if I'm not mistaken. That is where the slaves were arriving to. The slaves that were coming from, some of them East Asia, some of them were coming from India. So these slaves were brought in to work on the farms. There's a farm in Cape Town called Fairview. If you look at the sign of Fairview, you would see in one of their pages, there's a person with the suits and stuff. That is the farm owner or the farm workers. And then if you check on the other side, there's a boy with bare feet and that. So that is a slave that was working on the farm. I think this is one of the rich history of Cape Town. So the slaves came in because the black people didn't want to work for white people at the time because they're their own kettles. Now, Jan van Riebiek, what did he do? Because he never came to South Africa with kettles. He never came to South Africa with all these things. He had to steal it. So where did he steal it? He stole it from the Xhosa people. He stole it from the Khoi people. And there was an alliance now. Let me check and be sure. In 1793, the Ndlambes, they had an alliance with the British. Now these guys, the alliance, who was the alliance working for? More separation. He was trying to overthrow another clan from the other side, which was his brothers. Now, Amaxhosa, this is one of the things they did. They partnered with white people to kill blacks. Black people combined with white people to kill black people. That is the unit. Now I'm gonna end this video today here. If I reflect on it, it speaks about a great time, a great history, which is the 1700s. Now on the next video, I'm going on Uyinza, no Maqoma, in all the wars that they were fighting. I'll make it brief. In all the wars they were fighting, till the capture of Uyinza and the wealth he had, and until his death, when he was actually, his body was mutilated, and why was his head taken to Scotland. Inhloko kaYinza yathathwa yaswe Scotland. I think that's the history of abantwana bethu funeka bayazi uba one of the great kings of the Xhosa people was beheaded by a mere soldier. A whole king of a nation was beheaded. So that will be on my next video. Let me leave it here for now.